Welcome to the Hartley Show. Today we're talking about Arrow and all things Green Arrow. Hi there, I'm Hartley Holmberg. And of course we're here with Steve Gerwing, Barry Nerling, Carlo Finella, and Shannon Archibald, who makes this all possible. Thank you, Shannon Archibald. So, we'll start off today talking about the origins of Green Arrow. How he started off as a Batman knockoff. Green Arrow, the comic, when it originally came out, was nothing more than a thinly veiled take on Batman. And, you know, I can show you right over here. This is the original Green Arrow look. Now, this wasn't the first Green Arrow artist. I don't actually know the original Green Arrow artist's name, because those early Green Arrow comics fucking sucked balls. They were awful. And like I say, he was just a ripoff of Batman. Whereas Batman had the Batmobile, he had the Arrow car. Whereas Batman had the Batjet, he had the Aeroplane. And, you know, even the names of the Green Arrow stuff weren't original or cool. You know, Batman had the Batcave, he had the Arrow Cave. Batman has Robin, he has Speedy. And yes, in the 60s, he ended up being a junkie. Go figure. So, the one thing I did like from Green Arrow's past was this Jack Kirby take on it. He really revitalized the concept as it was back then and made it a little bit more interesting. I've pointed out some highlights here. One of the things I quite liked was how creative he was with arrows, for instance. Lava arrows. Get a load of that. A lava arrow. Over here, Jiu-Jitsu arrow. Just by the way, how the fuck do you think they'd get that goddamn arrow into a quiver? Look at the size of this sucker. Yeah, this is one of my personal favorite arrows of all time. It's a combo. It's a two-for arrow. It's an arrow that floats in the air with mirrors on it so he can see people, that he can shoot another arrow off of it to cover the guy's head with. So fucking dumb and awesome at the same time. Now, one of the cool things about Jack Kirby was, as I've suggested, he's quite creative, and he brought some interesting things to the plate, like, you know, weird big shit like the mystery of the giant arrows, and the arrow from outer space. But, you know, he was also the guy that gave Green Arrow an origin, which is one of the things I wanted to address here, because, of course, Arrow, the TV show, really is largely about what happened to Oliver Queen on the island. The one thing they did maintain, and they've always maintained with the Green Arrow origin, is that he's a rich guy who gets stuck on an island. Of course, in this origin story, it's a starfish-shaped island, which, thank God they got rid of that. Star Island, Star City, yeah. The dumbest thing about the early origin for Green Arrow was he just taught himself. He got stuck on an island, and he decided, hey, I need to eat, so I'm going to make arrows and a bow and a practice site and teach myself how to use arrows, and somehow, note the hinge that he builds into this arrow. Somehow he's able to make net arrows with hinges out of materials that he just scrounges off the island, and he even comes up with a drill arrow that can bore through coconuts. So how he originally got off the island was he spots a ship, and he goes after them, and it turns out, oh, the ship's been taken over by pirates, and he takes them all on with his net arrow and his drill arrow that don't make any sense whatsoever. And then I think they they call him Green Arrow right off the bat, you know. That Green Arrow costume and the tricky arrows just made a grease. Who are you? The Green Arrow. That's a great idea. Now, his origin was updated slightly in this series by Mike Grell called The Longbow Hunters. This is where they decided to take the Green Arrow concept and update it for an adult mature audience, and the series that followed this miniseries was fantastic. He did make Green Arrow a far more realistic and adult character. He got rid of all the trick arrows and whatnot, and he made him pretty violent for that matter. But one of the things he really changed, which was funny at the time, but I was never really a fan of, was he said that all the guys that he took on, the pirates and all that, it was just actually a couple of stoners that were high on mushrooms at the time, and they just flipped out. Green Arrow Year One. Now this and this are what I've heard are the big inspirations for the TV show Arrow. And in this particular story, this is probably, pound for pound, the best Green Arrow story told. And this is created by Andy Diggle, Diggle being one of the characters in the show, and Jock, the artist who just goes by the name Jock. They also created The Losers, which as a comic was infinitely better than the movie, which is too bad. I don't know why they thought the movie needed to be comic book guys when it was a very realistic comic. And they've taken in this Green Arrow Year One, they took this basic storyline of Green Arrow being trapped on an island, and they made it far, far more than the basic idea of him just training himself and then bumping into a bunch of pirates. I really don't want to blow anything about this because this is such a great read. If you haven't read it, I can't actually recommend anything Green Arrow more than this, hands down. This is the comic based off the TV show. This originally is produced as in web comic format on the DC website once a week. I think it's Wednesdays, or they have a particular day they actually put this out. I forget which day. And then eventually gets reprinted into this. This comic, Arrow, is infinitely better than the current Green Arrow comic right now being written by Anna Senti, which f***ing sucks. I hate to say it, but this comic is awful. If you do want some Arrow stuff in your life, though, this comic is really good, and it actually does breathe a lot of life into the storylines on the television. The latest, I believe, this week's web comic of Arrow actually touches on Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress character they just spent 2 episodes on, and it gives us a little taste of how she began, actually her first kill, as it is. You know, when she goes against her parents and all that, or her father and all that stuff. I don't want to really ruin anything about the show, but the object of Huntress is she's rallying against her father's corrupt mob industries and all that. This I believe covers up to probably maybe the 8th webisode of the comic, and you know, they feature a bunch of different artists. One of the coolest things about this, though, one of the things I loved about it, was that the first artist that we get to see is Mike Grell. Mike Grell being the guy who created this, Green Arrow, the Longbow Hunters. So there you have it, Arrow and his origin as Green Arrow. Be sure to watch part 2 where we interview Barry Nerling on his role as the mechanic in Arrow. As always, I'd like to thank Taz Comics for letting us film here, and thank you for watching. Ciao.